grief,
silver linings,
and other shit with Courtney
and Lynn.
We're going to take a different kind of look at grief and trauma and ways to cope.
Ding, ding, ding.
We hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome to today's episode. We have a very special guest today, Stefania. We're going to start by talking about how we met. So we're all in the beauty industry, and it's not, if anybody's in the beauty industry, they understand it's not that big of a circle.
Right.
And everybody knows everybody. So Stefania worked with a hairdresser, and then I ended up working with that same hairdresser. And I'm a hairdresser, she's a nail tech, she's an esthetician. She rounds out the group. And I use her for body waxing and friendship.
Yeah.
It's developed. Honestly, like, I feel like we both went through trauma, like, in the same,
Yeah, it was about a year, I think, apart.
like, in the same group of time.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, there's a lot of people that when you're like, oh, you went through something too, you're like, yeah, all right, all right. Like, we'll check it on each other. Like, plus, I feel like you're a person that, like, likes to talk about the things you've been through.
Yes.
Like, you're not shy about it.
No.
And neither am I. And so many people have been through what you've been through. And I know several people that it's really not been an easy journey for them to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you see them and you're like, oh, they're struggling.
Yes, for sure.
And I never had that thought about it. I know that you've struggled. I'm not saying you haven't. But, like, I feel like you're a person who's always wanted to move forward.
Yes.
And not just dwell. So, I also wanted you to be here because I really felt like this pays homage to my sister. She had fertility issues. She had a baby at 26 weeks, which that's what today's episode's about, in case you didn't read the description. Infertility and just having babies that are sick. And it's a really scary time. So my sister, I was like a drunk bar girl, and how old was I, 26? And she was pregnant with my nephew, and she had had 2 miscarriages beforehand. And then they didn't really analyze, like, to figure out what her problem was right away.
Yeah.
Not till the second one, really.
Okay.
So she went into labor at 26 weeks, and her water started to break, and then they tipped her back, and, like, this was like Friday night, and she ended up having it on Sunday. Like, they tried to,
Kind of similar. Slow
yeah, stave it off.
Yeah.
And I already told the story about me coming in there drunk.
Yes.
But I literally cried every day I went there. And it wasn't my kid, it wasn't me going through it, which is probably why it was more, like, emotional, because I had no control.
Sure.
So maybe my more emotions were not as under check, because it wasn't me. But I was like, people probably think I have the most dying ass family members in this freaking hospital. Every time I leave, the day he was leaving, I'm like, ooh, she's like, he's coming home. Like, chill. He was so tiny, and, like,
you could put the rings on his wrist, like from their wedding rings.
so he was 2 pounds,
6 ounces.
no, 2 pounds, and then 14 inches. Because they said he was 2 pounds bigger and a half ounce, or 2 inches and a half ounce bigger than they thought that he should be gestationally. They said he probably would have been a 10-pounder.
Wow. Okay.
So that's, like, what saved him. So then he went down to, like, I think it was 112 or something.
Yeah.
He dropped low.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, like, it just scared me. The first time I held him,
Oh, I'm sure.
I stared at the monitor. She's like, you can look at the baby. I'm like, I'm good. I looked at him in the incubator. I'm just gonna stare and make sure he's, like, his vitals are fine.
Yeah.
Like, it was really stressful on me, and like I said, I didn't go through it. So, like, I can't even imagine.
I remember the first time I walked into the NICU with her, she's like, don't look at any other babies. Look straight ahead. He's in the very back. It will scare the bejesus out of you.
Because you weren't a mom yet either.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I found I was pregnant, like, soon after, but
Right.
yeah, that was, she's like, don't look around.
Because once you're a mom, you're, like, a little bit stronger.
Yes.
Like, once you've done that once, you're like, okay, I can emotionally handle your story, or
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it, but when you're not a mom, you're just like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
it was very scary, and like you said, I looked at some of the older babies, and I was just like, and she's like, just look, you know, our baby's fine, you know, but, there's such a loss of control, too, like, if you're not in the medical field, if you're just flitting around putting makeup on people,
Yeah.
curling hair,
Yeah.
like you're not prepared for any of that.
No, not at all.
And you never think it's gonna happen to you.
No.
But I was convinced it was gonna happen to me. So like that's the reason that we thought we needed you here, because it never happened to me or her, like
Yeah.
personally. But when I got pregnant, I was really nervous. Me and my sister shared a gyno.
Yeah.
So I was like, ugh, and she's like, dude, she's the 10%, you're the 90.
Yeah.
She's like, you need to calm down. Like, I'm like, I just assumed that it would take me a while. Like, she's like, not everybody's the same, just because she's your freaking sister.
Yeah.
You know, just because your mom had an easy time or didn't have an easy time doesn't mean you will or won't. But like, I guess I was always just terrified because I knew what it could be.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, it's hard.
And now I don't feel like I get to talk about it because he's not alive. Like, I feel like it makes people sad to like,
Yeah.
for me to like celebrate premature month or, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, tell her story. People be like, well, that's depressing. Like,
Yeah, I heard you say that in the other episode.
I
too.
really feel like people,
Yeah.
I could say that to a few people,
Sure.
but, so how long were you married before you decided to try to get pregnant?
We weren't.
Okay. 'Cause I met you, you weren't married.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were in the townhouse.
Oh wow. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was back like 08, 09. Yeah. Because we moved out in, gosh, 2011. Yeah. So that must have been, 2009, 2010, that time frame.
I feel like it was maybe 11
Maybe 11, okay.
because I feel like I had already had Cole.
The first time you came up, well, no, I shouldn't say that. The first
Yeah.
time you were at my old house, you had cold, because I remember.
Yeah, so he was born in 10. Okay, so we've known each other about 11 years. So you were just about to get married.
Yeah, so I got diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome when I was 18. I'm pretty sure I had it much before that, just because my periods have always been really irregular, and I just never really had that, I don't know.
Cycle.
Yeah, like it was 2-3 times a year, essentially, and that was it.
Okay.
And so when I turned, or was about 18, so it was right after I got my license, so I just turned 18, I gained 45 pounds in 3 months without changing my diet or my lifestyle or any of that. And I decided to go to the doctors, and they ran some blood tests. There's really no apparently specific test to run for polycystic, but
Right.
they check like triglycerides and stuff like that. So they officially diagnosed me with that. I kind of talked to them about fertility because I have always wanted to have kids since I was little, and that was really important to me. And I don't remember which doctor said what. I fired a lot of OBs in that time frame because one of them told me, don't even bother trying to have kids on your own, like you're going to have fertility treatments. Then I switched, and then another one was like, oh, I would never put you through fertility treatments, you're just going to keep trying till it works. And I was like, okay, well, I don't like that either. And then I finally found a woman who was like, well, here's the thing, like we're going to try for this long, we're going to do this, this, and this, and if it doesn't work, then I will be happy to refer you out. So basically, we got
And you
married.
did not know your husband then?
No, not when I was 18, no. Yeah, so we got married in 2012, and I think within months I went to the OB and I was like, okay, I'm not pregnant, like, fix it. And she decided to give me Clomid, which I did not respond to for 3 months, and
I didn't respond to it.
at all.
Okay, because my sister was not polycystic, she had endometriosis.
Yeah, which is also really tough.
And they did give her the Clomid, and she was psycho, like she responded. She responded, she was wild. She was like very even keel, so you're like, ooh, she's kind of snappy.
I
It's just
hear
like,
that a lot. I listen to an infertility podcast now, and the woman who runs it talks about that when people say, oh, I went on Clomid, she's like, did you have the Clomid crazies? And I'm like, I didn't know, I was fine. Like, it didn't affect me in any way.
What's the podcast called?
It's called Infertile AF.
Oh, fun, okay.
Yeah, I really like that.
In case anybody's not heard of that.
Yeah, so she interviews one person per episode, and then she's also been through infertility herself, which is cool.
Okay, cool.
And then she tries to interview some doctors and then some men too, whether it be like same-sex couples or like she interviewed her husband just to get his view on how he thought like
It felt
their journey
and what,
felt.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, so
That's not
she, yes,
Useful.
very useful. Yeah,
It's nice to hear the guy's point of view.
yes, and it's cool to know that like other people have been through almost exactly like the same story that we have.
Well, and it's nice that there's a niche podcast about that.
Yes.
Because when I went looking for like a grief one and talking about like grief and healing and trauma, there's not really that out there.
Interesting.
So that's why I felt compelled to do this, because there's not somebody that's blending all of it.
Yeah.
Like, cause it was traumatic to you,
Yes.
and there's a grief process, and it's not just about infertility or just about sexual assault or
Yeah.
everything that's happened. So there's not really a whole lot of that out there, so I'm glad that there's like a support system
Yes.
for.
Yeah, there's a couple out there. I know I'm in a couple like infertility support groups on Facebook too,
Yeah.
and that's where I got the podcast
Oh,
from.
good, okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple out there. So we ended up going to a reproductive endocrinologist, that's the official term for a fertility doctor, and went to whatever she had suggested that we go to. It ended up being pretty close by to the home, so it worked out really well. And they did 2 cycles where they put me on more Clomid than the doctor had put me on. So I had been on 50 milligrams prior. They did 150. That didn't stimulate any follicles. So then he, in the same cycle, he did 250, and that didn't stimulate anything either. So then he cycled me out, and then we began doing with injectables.
Okay.
So we did, the plan was to do IUI with injectables, because I was only 25 at the time, and he, at our consultation, honestly said to me, I don't even have any success rates for people your age, because I don't see people under 30.
Yeah.
So he basically said, this is the success rate, and I can't remember what it was. He's like, at a couple percentage points, and that's probably you. And I was like,
Oh, gee, thanks.
So like a 30, like he was like saying for a 30-year-old, this is what.
this is what the success
Yeah.
rates that are like nationwide or whatever. So at a couple percentage points since
Right.
you're 5 years younger. I was like, okay, cool. And it really didn't, I don't know, it like, that part didn't affect me. I know some people, when they have to go through fertility treatments, feel like the loss of being able to get pregnant on their own. I don't know, I think because I had it in my head for so long that I thought that was going to happen,
Right.
it didn't really affect me a whole lot.
You weren't just skipping through life thinking that everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then find out it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that could be traumatic in itself. Like if you don't know you
100%.
have anything wrong.
Yes, to find out that here,
Yeah.
the thing that you're technically supposed to be put on this earth to do, or, most
Right.
people believe that,
Right.
that's not gonna be you.
Right.
So we did the first cycle, and it didn't work, and I will say it didn't, like, it made me sad, obviously, but I didn't dwell on it a whole lot. It was more like, okay, well, we're gonna do another one, let's try again.
Right. You didn't have all your eggs in one basket. Like, you
No,
weren't
I
just
don't know
like,
what I
sit-
was expecting, to be completely honest. And I think it helped that it just didn't work, instead of that it worked and then had a miscarriage, because I think that would have been a little bit more traumatic at first.
Right. Yeah.
And then with our second cycle, we did the exact same thing, and we got pregnant. And we were pregnant with multiples, which was weird, scary, super exciting. We kind of thought, this is it. We're done. This is perfect. Like, what else could we want? And everything was honestly great. Like, I had a great pregnancy. Actually lost 16 pounds my first trimester. Not because I was sick, but I was like, I literally joked to my husband and said, I think we need to get pregnant like 5 more times, and I need to lose 16 pounds my first trimester every single time, and I'll be at my goal weight. It'll be perfect. And so, yeah, I mean, the whole entire pregnancy up until delivery, I gained 9 pounds because I had gained like the 16 back.
Yeah, let's just say she said multiples. It was 2.
Yeah. Yes. I
It wasn't like
she,
5.
She wasn't having quintuplet.
Yeah, no. I heard your episodes before, and so as trigger words go, so the word twin is a trigger for me, so I don't use that word. So I'll always use multiples, or I'll use kids
Because it
or
means
children.
that you had 2.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I didn't either. I just thought people would think that you're about to have a litter.
Oh, yeah. No, you're totally fine.
Multiple sounds like you're about to have a
Yeah.
whole litter of children.
Yeah. So I call them the kids, or I say the multiples. Yeah, like a multiples pregnancy or whatever. So yeah, everything went really great. I was the one who, being a first-time mom and having, being pregnant with 2, it was very like, I need to research. I'm very like research. I need everything to be like analyzed. So I started watching like YouTube videos of vloggers who had multiples, and I found one in particular that I actually still follow to this day. And she vlogged her whole entire birth with all of her kids, and she did a natural birth, which for whatever reason is something I wanted to do at some point in my life. So I read all these books and followed her and asked my doctor a million questions. She actually said that she was like, you know, I think you're just going to be the mom that delivers at 38 weeks because you have, like, you ask all these questions and you're so prepared and, like, you want to know all these things that could happen, but, like, I think...
Because you're preparing for the worst, you're going to be pleasantly
Right.
surprised.
Exactly. So, I mean, I really kind of, like, took life on as everything's going to be fine because you know,
Well, that's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly. And you hadn't dealt with anything prior to. I had never dealt with any miscarriages or anything like that. I don't think I knew anyone who had had a miscarriage, or not anyone who had openly talked about it anyway. So, yeah, I just went through life like everything's great. At our anatomy scan, we found out that it was a boy and a girl. Much to my husband's dismay, he really wanted boys. Like, he never thought he wanted a girl. So.
That's why she's playing with all them cards.
I know. She did. She definitely was a tomboy. She's getting a little bit more girly now, but yeah. So he actually named her because I wanted them to feel some sort of connection. Like the day before our anatomy scan, I remember saying to him like, "So on the off chance that this other one is a girl," because we knew that Brody was going to be a boy at our like 13 and a half weeks.
Was he B? Was he B?
He was A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. So we had.
I just assumed they were A and B.
Yeah,
right.
the other way. Yeah, my mom did too. So at our 13-week scan that our OB wanted us to do, we told the tech like, hey, we're gonna find out like what they are. So if you can tell anything, like we didn't think at 13 and a half weeks they could, but so at the beginning.
14 is kind of where it can tell.
Yeah. So she, by the end of the ultrasound, she said, I'll be shocked if this one's not a boy, but then I don't know what the other one is. So he was just like, oh, it's 2 boys. Like, that's just the way it is. So he actually named her the night before, because I was like, on the off chance that this one's actually a girl, like, do we have a name for her? Do we like anything? And we came up with Aubrey.
Because he was like, we don't need it.
Yeah, he literally, I wanted Avery, and then he texted me back, and he was like, how about Aubrey? And I said, okay, yeah, I like it. Like, I wanted him to have, like I said, a connection with her.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, everything was great up until 25 and 4.
25.
Yeah. So, similar story to Christy, you know, I got up that day, and I had some, like, I don't even want to call it pain. It was like pressure.
My sister felt indigestion.
Oh, interesting.
We had gone out for dinner the night before for my birthday, and we had like heavy Italian and bread,
Yeah.
and it was just me, Lynn, my sister, and my mom. No,
Yeah.
we didn't have any kids.
Back in the day.
None of them kids were there. It was really nice. It was quiet.
That's why
it was lovely. It was lovely. But so she thought that she was having, like, she wasn't having pain. She just
Sure.
felt real like, oh,
And she
God.
kept going to the bathroom.
Like, like
Yeah,
what's
She
going
was
on?
having some kind of that pressure feeling.
Yeah,
and
pressure and-
she couldn't like recognize it yet.
You're right.
She didn't realize
first
what it
time
was.
mom too. You don't really know what to expect.
Well,
Right.
and I'm the only one that's birthed. You didn't birth Elliot, did you? Like,
no.
vaginally?
No. I had
So, like,
infections.
There's no doubt what the pressure is when you're full term.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm either gonna push baby out or I'm gonna poop all over this room. Like, there is something major happening down there. So if you don't have that giant baby putting the pressure,
Yes.
Right.
you know what I mean? Because that's really what it is the pressure where you're
Yeah.
just like, ow.
Yeah.
So you're not to that phase yet. So you're just like, oh, I got
Something
something
wrong.
didn't
Yeah.
settle right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was like back pressure,
Okay.
and every time we had done an ultrasound, they had always measured in like the 95th percentile for height and weight, however that works. And so I was like, okay, like there's 2 in there. They're getting bigger by the minute. Like
My back
at
freaking
some
hurts.
point, my back's going to hurt, and it wasn't like painful at all. I mean, I went through my whole entire daily existence.
Right.
So that day was a Monday, and I, for whatever reason, didn't have to go into work until like 1 o'clock or something. So we hung out on the couch that morning. Danny was off at the time on Mondays, and I don't know, it like felt weird, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it. And then I went to work, and my boss, who legit never talks about personal things with anyone, looked at me and she was like, "Are you feeling okay? Like, you don't look good." And I was like, "Thanks." Like, just a pregnant lady, just walking around, no big deal. And so
I was doing good before you said that.
I know.
Me.
She was like, "You look really pale. Are you all right?" And I was like, "Well, you know, like, I don't know. My back's kind of been like whatever." And I went into my room, and I will never forget this, because on this day till now, like, I will not cut wax strips. I was cutting wax strips in my room. And
I think that's your trigger, and I think you have to start cutting your own wax
I
strips in
know.
your room.
I do. I cut them now, but I always make sure it's never on a Monday. And never on April 7th. So I was cutting these wax strips, and I don't know, I think I was talking to a friend of mine as well, and I don't know, she said we had the same OB, and she's like, just call and see, like,
Make yourself feel better.
yeah, like, the
Yeah.
worst they'll do, like, obviously I can tell that you're nervous about something. The worst they'll do is tell you to go to the ER or the triage, and put you on a monitor and, like, make sure the kids are fine and send you home. I'm like, all right, cool. So I call, and the nurse was like, "Yeah, doctor wants you to go in." And I said, "Okay, cool, like, I get off work at 7, so I'll just go after." And she was like, "Yeah, you go now." And I was like, "I've only been at work for an hour. What do you mean I have to go now?" So I drove myself, because I didn't think anything was wrong.
My sister drove herself.
Yeah, I mean, I was fine. Like, there was nothing wrong. And I got there, and I think I called my husband, but told him not to come. And he did anyway, thankfully. I remember my girlfriend Lauren, saying, "Please eat, because they will not let you eat while you're on the monitors." And I thought it was such, like, a curious thing for her to say, but she knows me well, and that I'm Italian and I love food. So she was like, "Please eat something." I didn't follow her
Hold on,
instructions.
she's not Italian. She's from Italy.
Yes, I am. So I went, and I think a resident checked me or something, and didn't really say, and then my doctor walks in, and the poor guy, like, looked like he had been at a backyard barbecue. Like, he had his hat on, his tennis shoes, and he had, like, jeans on, and he checks me and tells me I'm at a 3.
Oh.
And I'm 90% effaced, which meant nothing to me at all. And so it kind of was a big blur after that. They started me on magnesium, which I also heard some people hate that. It did not affect me in any way.
Really?
At all. Nothing at all. I was on it for a day and a quarter.
This is what people from Italy are built of.
Right?
Magnesium.
She just
Right.
got strong insides. The medicines don't affect her. They don't affect me.
The strong meatball.
Yeah. So yeah, so he started me on magnesium, gave me the shot for the lungs, the first one, and I don't know what I was expecting really to happen. I'm not really sure. I know I was in denial for sure that anything was wrong. So he was basically like, "Okay, we're gonna transfer you over to Royal Oak Beaumont, because, like, we don't deliver kids younger than 28 weeks gestation at Troy Beaumont." And I was like, "Okay, cool, yeah, like, I'll drive my cars downstairs."
So, yeah, no.
Yeah.
No.
He was like, "No, we're gonna get an ambulance to take you there." And I remember when the ambulance guys came in, he was like, "Guys, lights and sirens all the way there." And I was like, "Why? Like, I'm fine. I don't know what's wrong with you." So the ambulance ride, which I hope is my last, was super uncomfortable. The bed sucks, and all the bumps and everything else. And it was like 6-ish in the afternoon.
Did you manage to drive it yourself?
I mean, it was like the bed was so not bed, like the jail mattress was so uncomfortable.
She
It
would have
was
went through
terrible.
the drive-through and
It's also
get in
the
the
story
shape
of
or
that
something.
one time she was in prison. She's like in a jail cell.
I could tell, like, they were so thin. It was super uncomfortable. My IV had not been, like, placed properly, so I felt like there was a ton of bricks on my arm. And so then we get there, and it's raining, and I'm right at shift change. So, like, I got there right at 7 o'clock, got a new nurse, got a new IV, put the heart monitors on and everything, you know, seemed okay. They kept me on magnesium for the rest of that day, plus all of Tuesday. And it still, I guess, you know, didn't sink in at that point still. So
You
I
thought
was
they
like,
can stop this?
so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like be here for a day and I'm gonna get to go home.
See, with my sister, they told her, like, we're keeping you here until you deliver this baby.
They
Set up
eventually told, I don't know if it was like early in the day on Tuesday or later in the day, but so on Tuesday, Danny took the day off of work and he was there the whole day and it was super uneventful. Like nothing happened. I had no contractions. Everything was fine. And so
Adding to your denial.
adding to my denial, I don't even know if I told my parents I was in the hospital, to be completely honest with you. Because my
She's
mom,
their only child.
my
They
mom,
were Italian,
I
like-
know, but my mom is such a worrier, and I knew she would like.
You
She
call
would.
her after the fact, be like, I got checked out,
Everything's
everything's
fine.
okay.
Yes, exactly. And she would only add to my non-existent anxiety
Well,
at
and
that
she's
point.
not like, excuse me if I'm wrong about her, but like medically minded, where
No.
she's not like a nurse where you can say, Mom, okay, like this happened.
No,
and
she would have no idea.
Right, she
Yeah.
didn't like talk to you about
No.
childbirth ahead of
No,
time.
no, definitely not. No.
She's an old school mom, so.
Yes, and
yeah.
she had a C-section. I was full term.
Okay.
I was overdue and breech, so like nothing.
And did she have fertility problems, or did they just have you?
She did have fertility problems. They supposedly tried to get pregnant for 5 years, you know, back 30, almost 4 years ago. She said, oh, the doctor one day gave me a shot and then I got pregnant. And I was like, a shot of what? Like, what did you get? And she was like, couldn't tell you. I was like, multiple shots? Just one? She was like, just one shot. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Could be 12.
Yeah,
Right?
who knows? And so she wanted more, my dad did not. So they agreed on one, apparently.
Okay. I just never knew that.
Yeah, she wanted more, but my dad didn't actually want any at all. And
Okay.
so one was their compromise.
And look how wrapped he is.
Yeah. So Tuesday night came by and they were like, okay, we're gonna take you off magnesium. I'm like, cool, I get to go home. They're like, yeah, about that. You're not going home because you're too far dilated. We lived about 45 minutes away from rural Oklahoma and they weren't comfortable with us being so far away.
Your vagina's open.
Yeah,
Like-
pretty much. So they, and you know, because it was multiples, they just didn't feel super comfortable with doing that. So they said, you're gonna be here until these babies come. And I was like, but I work tomorrow. Like, I have
no
my
more.
shift, yeah. And I said, and I haven't had a baby shower yet. Like, and I remember the nurse saying, if the doctor thinks that you're well enough, eventually you may be able to host your baby shower in the cafeteria downstairs. And I was like, no.
No, we need prettier things in
Yeah,
the cafeteria.
I was like, that's not how it works. What are you talking about? So, you know,
Clearly they've done that before.
clearly, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Why can't you use the atrium up there? They got that big.
I know, it's so pretty.
Right,
That outside
do
area.
the option.
Yeah.
Is the cafeteria the only option?
Yeah. So Danny was like, all right, well, I mean, I can't just like be off work, so I'm just gonna go to
I
work.
got 2 babies.
Yeah, to feed, exactly. So he went home and they transferred me to Antepartum, which I'd never heard of, which is apparently a department in the hospital where they put moms who haven't had their kids yet who aren't allowed to go home at. Yeah, so that was gonna be my home for the next, at this point they were still hoping that I was gonna make it to 38 weeks. So it was gonna be my home for like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
I know,
Right.
I know a girl who did that. Well, she didn't do 12. I think she did 6. But it was right when Corona broke out.
Oh shoot. Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, so I was there for, gosh, all of like 5 hours before I started having contractions. And I knew that they were contractions. At this point, I was like, because I had asked the doctor, which I don't think I'll ever forget this. I was like, when he checked me and told me I was at a 3, I was like, so did I go into labor today? And he was like, oh honey, you've probably been in labor for a week. And I was like, what's that supposed to feel like? Because I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't
Right.
feel no contractions, nothing crazy going on.
Okay, so my first child, side note, I had Pitocin. A lot of it.
Yeah,
Okay, my water broke and I wasn't having any natural contractions.
okay.
So like they loaded me up on it and they were showing the nursing students how typical contractions look. Okay, my paper was the show and tell.
Yeah,
So I wanted to peel my skin off my face.
yeah.
I had no epidural and I'm like, and so my sister came in and she looked at me and she goes, hey, you know there's no award for this, right? I said, what? She goes, there's no best birther award. And I was like, Tony, look at the nurse, I need drugs right now. So with my second child, I asked my doctor, what does a real contraction feel like?
Yeah.
I didn't have any of my own. No Braxton, because I was 36 weeks. So like
Yeah.
no Braxton Hicks or nothing leaving
Yeah.
each other. She told me 50%.
Of what it was.
That's why I almost had a house baby, because Pitocin is so nasty
Yeah.
that like the regular contractions seemed like a walk in the
Manageable.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a walk in the park. So I wasn't even sure that that's what it was.
I had to yell at her. No, you're in labor.
Oh my gosh.
She didn't even want to like time anything because
I
I'm like,
chased
I'm
Scarlett down
timing
the
it because I can hear her going, whew. I'm like, yep, there's one. So I'm timing ready now. I'm like, yeah, you've had like 4 while I've been talking to you.
I'm
in the last,
cooking
like,
breakfast. I chased Scarlett down the street. She got out the door. Like,
Gosh, that's crazy.
and I called Tony. He was like, I was coming home anyway. Like he could tell in my voice. Like,
Yeah, something's up.
yeah, like you said, your boss looked at you like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm fine,
Yeah.
fine. I got to the hospital test and I was dilated to 4 and I was 80% phase.
That's awesome.
But I said to him, the rest of us home. And when they said that, he goes, what's that mean? I'm like, we're not going home. You know, but it can be such a fast thing, but it can be such a slow thing. It's so different for everybody.
Yeah.
That the fact that you realize that that's what it was on your first baby at that point
Yeah.
was probably saving your soul a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, this is gonna happen. This is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, so I knew that I was having contractions. I timed them, and me being me and not wanting to, like, bother anyone, it was the middle of the night. It was, like, 2 a.m. I timed them for a whole hour before I called anybody. And when the nurse came in, it wasn't my nurse. I was like, hey, like, this is happening. And she was like, oh, you're dehydrated. Like, you need to drink water. That's why.
But weren't you hooked up to an IV?
Exactly. So looking back on it, at the time, honestly, it did not, like, even
Dawn
I
on
don't
you.
know, it did not dawn on me
Well,
at
you're
all.
thinking too, it's a nurse. She sees us
Knows.
every day.
Yes.
She knows what's going on.
Yeah, I had been hooked up to an IV for a day and a quarter at that point. And so, yeah, I was not dehydrated. So she said, drink as much water as you can. I had bathroom
Oh, so yeah.
privileges at that point.
Yeah. Crazy.
I did. I went pee like 3 times. And I was glad to be able to go pee because prior to that I had, you know, no bathroom privileges because of the magnesium. And so she said if they don't go away or calm down in a half an hour, call and let me know. Or no, she said if they don't go away, I'll come back in a half hour and check on you. So a half hour went by, she didn't come back, and an hour went by, she didn't come back, and I was still having contractions. So finally after, it's like an hour and a half, again, I just don't want to bother people. Because I didn't know that I didn't like know what was going on. And so I finally called and I was like, hey, so like someone said they were going to come check up on me and no one ever did. So like, can somebody come please? And then it was like the whirlwind of everything happened. So
You think that antepartum, is that what it's called?
antepartum, yeah.
Antepartum.
They would be watching
would
the
do that.
monitors.
I
Right.
was not on a monitor. So that's
What?
part of antepartum. You're only on a monitor for like 2 or 3 hours a day. So I was not on a monitor at
I
that
don't
time.
like that at all.
Yeah, it's because you have privileges to like get up and go to the bathroom and
Right.
like, you can eat, you can do like.
So, but
normal
you would
people
think
stuff.
that you would be watched harder by the nurses,
Right.
given that you're not hooked up to everything all day.
Correct. Yeah, no, she did not come back. And so they came, and I was like, hey, I'm still having
And
contractions.
it wasn't her.
And no, it was not her. I was
Okay.
like some lady, I don't know what her name was. Like my actual nurse came this time, and like they seemed busy. There was like people going on in the hallway. There was talks and what whatever normal.
As
hospital
Shannon
stuff.
said when I was delivering, babies falling out of every veg.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's babies falling out of every veg in Macomb County. I'll be able to coming to you.
Nice. Yeah.
My sister's girlfriend worked in labor and delivery
Oh,
when I
nice.
had Tessa. Yeah, so
Got
she
it.
was trying to take her from me so I could get some rest.
That's so
But you would think the first nurse at that point would have hooked you up to something.
Or at least go
Showing
and
that-
get her nurse.
Let me hook you up and we'll monitor you for an hour and see what's going
Yeah,
on.
no.
How about, I'll go find your girl.
And
I'm not in charge of you.
I know.
I'll go find her.
Yeah, no. And I never thought to ask. It was just never a thing.
You're way too polite.
I don't know. I think
Well,
part of
it's
it was
also
that I
your-
was in denial.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything was wrong, seriously, so.
And you
in
didn't
the
know what to
hospital, it's all
expect.
wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't know what to expect.
Right,
It's your
right.
first baby.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so then they came in, they checked me. I was 6 centimeters dilated and 100% effaced. And they were like, oh, we gotta go take you back to labor and delivery, and we gotta like hook everything back up. And I think at this point they had said, okay, like, forget the 38 weeks, like, you're not gonna get there. Let's hope for 32. And so I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of
How about we hope for today and tomorrow
Yeah.
and the day after? Like,
I had it
right?
in my head that they were gonna come around 34, 35, because that's about the average, you know,
Right.
multiple pregnancy delivery.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, 32, like, I don't know what that means, but all right, that's cool. So back to labor and delivery, back on magnesium. They also started me on something called Indocin, which is like similar to magnesium, I guess. And then I got my second shot for their lungs.
Yeah.
And
Because those have to go so long in between. Yeah.
it's 24 hours, I think, yeah. So, so yeah, this was Wednesday now, and by like noonish, I think it was, I looked at my nurse and I was like, I'm leaking, like, I feel water. And she's like, oh, you probably peed yourself. I was
Oh
like,
yeah, 'cause I do that all the time.
yeah, I was like, no, I legit just peed, like, somebody just took the pan out, like, I just
Right.
peed. So, that's when they finally, like, checked me again, because at first they were like, well, we don't want to keep checking you because,
They don't want to keep opening you
exactly,
up. And,
they said it could, you know, cause more, and then it could lead to, like, infection and whatever. So, so they checked me, and they basically said, your son's head is so low that it could literally fall out. So we need to do a C-section, like, right away, because, you know, at that point, like, I was dilated enough to give birth to them, but they said it's already an emergency situation as it is because they're so young gestationally.
why do that to them as well?
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
didn't know, like, what Aubrey was doing at that point. Like,
Right.
they really didn't know. So they did a last ultrasound, and I called Danny and I was like, how quickly can you be here? And because they were like, if you can't be here quick enough, like, we're gonna
We're
take
not
that.
waiting for
Yeah.
them.
So I think he got there at like 5, which doesn't make sense to me because I feel like he got there, they handed him his scrubs, and they took me. And they were born at 6:58 and 6:59, so that couldn't have been 5 o'clock. I don't know. It was a whirlwind of a day. I think he ended up calling my parents, but my parents showed up.
So you said 6:50 and what?
6:58 and 6:59.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, everything was good as far as they knew. They actually, neither of them needed a ventilator.
How big were they?
She was 2 pounds 13 inches, and he was 1 pound 15.3 and 14 inches. So he was an
Just
ounce
a little
less.
bit smaller.
Yeah, he was an ounce less and an inch longer, and she was an ounce more and an inch shorter.
Okay.
So they, you know, did the whole, like, here's your baby, but, like, we gotta go. And I didn't know any better. Like, I didn't know that I should be scared. I remember, like, while giving birth, like, I looked at Danny and I was like, what are they, like, are they gonna look like humans? I don't know. At, like, 25 weeks, like, I don't freaking know
Yeah.
what they're gonna look like.
Yeah.
And I was, you know,
I didn't know either.
surprisingly happy that they looked like normal babies.
They just looked like they didn't have any fat.
They looked like they didn't have any fat. They were very shiny. And their hair was, like, completely matted to their head for, gosh, days. So yeah, that was fun. That was insane. His mom ended up coming, my parents were there, my aunt came, and so I actually did not get to meet the kids first. Because his mom had to leave, he had to, like, drive her home or something, and
You were still being
I was-
surgery and
I was in the room at this point, but they wouldn't let me get up yet. And he was like, well, like, do you mind if I take them? And I kind of wish I would have said no. I kind of do. Just because I know that I wasn't the first one to meet my kids. And, I mean, technically I did see them first, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
So later that night when he got back, we went down to the NICU and saw them, and again, just kind of like, still denial, like,
It's surreal.
very surreal.
If you think about it now, like, it looks like a movie screenshot.
Yes.
Like, that's how I feel about the day my sister died. Like,
Yeah.
I see certain snapshots, it's like, oh, that looks like a movie.
Yeah.
It looks like something I watched on TV once, not my real life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, everything was really good for, you know, they were growing fine, and I got the hang of pumping and everything, and, gosh, when was it? I don't even remember the day. Sometime in late April, they said that Brody had an infection in his bowel. So they basically, it's called NEC, it's Necrotizing Enterocolitis. Basically, like, there's not enough good bacteria in their bodies to fight off the bad bacteria that is, like, naturally in our system. And so one of two things can happen. Either the bad bacteria eats away at the bowel and that section of the bowel dies, or the bacteria eats a hole through the bowel and they perforate. So he had it where the section of his bowel died, and because of the risk of doing surgery on a 2-pound baby is so high, it's essentially 50-50 just for anesthesia. So they decided not to operate on him right away. They put him on wide spectrum antibiotics because they don't actually know what causes NEC and they don't know how to fix it. There's not like a specific drug that makes it go away.
Do they think that contributed to you going to labor early?
No. So they had my placentas, both of them, because they each had their own tested. Like, I didn't have preeclampsia, I didn't have gestational diabetes, so
There was no infection in your placenta that was spreading, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they have no idea why I went into labor as early as I did.
Okay.
So, so yeah, they were like, we're just gonna monitor him, we're gonna keep doing these x-rays, you know, whatever. So that was on a Tuesday. And then he, like, physically progressively got worse. They said the NEC medically wasn't getting any worse, but it was clearly affecting other parts of his body.
He was having trouble fighting.
Yeah, and so he was on blood pressure meds, and they kept having to add more blood pressure meds. So I think by the time they actually took him into surgery the following Monday, he was on 4 different blood pressure medications.
Oh my god.
Just to
little
keep-
body.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
3 weeks old.
He's 3 weeks old. So he got diagnosed on a Tuesday. Friday, I was at home actually doing clients, and I got a call from the hospital, and they're like, yeah, so your daughter has NEC, and I was like, no, I'm like, that's the other baby. Like, no, but like, we know, it's cool. Like, not cool, but like, we know, we're aware. And they're like, no, like, she woke up this morning, she's been crying uncontrollably, like, we checked her temperature, we changed her diaper, we fed her, we did this, did that. And so finally we did an x-ray, and she had it where she perforated.
Oh,
So for her, they immediately did surgery. So they were like, how fast can you be here? And I'm like, 45 minutes. Like, I'll be there as soon as I can. Because I had to sign off on paperwork.
You're like, sorry about your half service, but I'm
I
out.
had just finished somebody, thankfully. And I actually remember stopping at Taco Bell and getting a crunch wrap. Because I was like, all right, I need to drive and I need to eat. Because, like, I know I'm going to be here for a long time. And I was like, still pumping, so I had to gather all my things. And so I go in there, and they, you know, I sign, they wheel her away. And so she had surgery before he did. She had surgery on Friday, and then he had surgery on the following Monday.
yay.
Yeah. So I think what saved her, number one, is that they didn't wait.
Yeah.
But you know what they say about girls in the NICU?
They're stronger, for sure.
They do better.
Yeah, they're stronger. And they put her on the 4th blood pressure medication that they had put him on. They didn't mess with all of the other things with her, because they were like, this is what worked for him, chances are this is what will work for her as
There
well.
was no trial and error.
Not at all.
Oh, that was worked in her favor.
I think so too. So she got her surgery, she was fine. He got his surgery, he seemed to be fine. And then, so Tuesday, I'm so messed up now on days. He got surgery Monday. Yes, because she had it Friday, then he had his surgery on Monday, and he seemed like he was doing better. But then towards the end, he kind of like started to swell up more, and again, they were like, the blood pressure situation's not staying, like this and that and the other thing. And then his pediatric neonatologist ended up doing a bedside procedure the day of, because he was like, there's obviously something going on, like, we're not putting him through surgery again, like, he's not going to make it through surgery. And so he's like, I'm going to look for a sac of blood that I think is what's causing this problem. If it's not there, then it's not there. And I was like, okay. And I will, like, he was terrible. His bedside manner was awful. Like, this man should not be able to speak to any sort of parent about anything that is negative. He basically, like, did this bedside procedure. We were in her room, and their rooms were right next to each other, so we could, like, semi-watch what was happening. And so when he came out, he was like, I didn't find any blood. And I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Like, looking ahead, what's going on? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, there's, like, literally nothing. That, like, we're just gonna have to wait it out.
Not like, let's let him heal,
Let me
let's
call
try.
somebody else.
No.
We'll try and do everything we can, like.
Nope, he literally said, I have nothing else, like, I have nothing more to do for him. And I was like, okay.
Well, thanks for nothing.
Yeah, he was, and that's why I say he was awful. He was like the head of neonatologists over there. And so when it came for time for Aubrey to have her reconnection surgery, I specifically waited an extra week for a different doctor to be there. Because the doctor that ended up doing it was on vacation. And I was like, I don't care. She'll sit in the NICU for 7 more days. Like, we've been here long enough already, so it's not a big deal. So yeah, he sat there, and I know you know this. Ironically enough, however, it ended up being, it was our wedding anniversary. So it was our 2-year wedding anniversary. So my aunt, uncle, and cousin were coming to the hospital to see the kids and also to take us out to dinner. And my parents were there because my parents are always there. We had a friend of ours that was there because he came pretty often. And then for whatever reason, my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law were there. I'm not really sure why. That's a whole other episode. So yes, everybody was there, and my uncle basically said he was gonna order pizza because he could see that, like, things weren't as they should be. I didn't really feel comfortable leaving, and at one point, you know, the doctor did say, like, if you can stay, I would suggest staying, because, like, tonight will be the night that determines whether he's
How he does.
Yeah, kind of make it or not. And so they had this, like, room that was going to be prepared for us, and so my uncle ordered pizza. I didn't want to leave his bedside. I remember, like, not wanting to go. His blood pressure just wasn't doing well, and they, like, took me away to have pizza. So I went into, like, the little, I don't know, family, like, area, whatever, and had some pizza. And from there, the doctor actually, like, got me from that room and brought me to the room that we were supposed to be staying in, and had the conversation of, okay, he's like, I don't know if they had done something different, but they were like, we took his labs, and if they don't get better within the next hour, like, we're gonna have to figure out what to do.
We're very worried.
Yeah. So at exactly that moment, I don't know, looking back on it, I don't know if they timed it a specific way so that we wouldn't be there when it happened, or if it just happened to work out that that's when it happened. But a nurse or something came to get the doctor, and, you know, super discreet, like, hey, like, can I talk to you for a quick minute? And he went and then came back and told us he was gone. It was really crazy, because we were literally in the room talking, like, okay, like, what are we gonna do? What do you think we should do if we have to make that decision? Like, what do you want to do type of situation? And then I will say the one thing that,
Let it out. Don't hold it in.
the one thing that I am so glad that he didn't do was make us pick, because I didn't want to pick.
Right.
He saved your daughter.
He did.
He did.
And you gotta kind of think of it in a way that maybe that was his purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I was very glad that we didn't have to pick, because I don't know that I would have been able to pick.
No.
No, you would have just let God and the universe decide what was going to happen, right? I don't think we've ever had a good, real hard cry on this show yet.
Thank you.
You know, though, I think that was divine timing that it happened when you weren't there.
Yes.
How fucking traumatic
Yeah.
if you had watched it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I always say that I never saw my sister and the kids dead.
Yeah.
I never looked at them. Because that's not the image I wanted.
Right.
Like, you would have been reliving that over and over. And I think that whatever you want to call it, God, our spirit guides, our angels, or whoever's up there watching out,
Yeah.
divine timing. Sometimes things happen that are like, okay, well that, I could see how my situation could be worse. I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I know my sister watched Timothy seize
Right.
and have seizures, and like they would calm him down, and she just felt very shell shocked coming out of there.
Yeah.
And like you realize that there could be layers to that, and like, oh, it could have been worse. Could
Yeah.
have gone a lot better, but it could have been
Right,
worse. And
right.
Aubrey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the other silver lining was that everybody was there. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
my parents were there, my aunt and uncle, my cousin, who are, you know, my closest family, were there, and they stayed there, you know, all night, until we left at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. So yeah, I mean, I felt like I needed to go forward because I had this other baby that I
You didn't have a choice.
No,
Right.
no.
You do, but you don't feel like you do.
Correct. Yeah, like I didn't want to make her, you know, feel like it was
You could have ran out and started smoking crack.
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like there's always an option.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I felt like I needed to take extra care of her now because she was my main focus.
Right.
So,
Well,
you
and
know,
she was still a very sick baby.
she was. Yeah, I remember right after it happened, they were like changing her PICC line or something. And so I looked over, and I think my mom actually looked over with me, and she's covered in a blue sheet. All that's hanging out is her arm because they have to like sanitize everything, whatever. And my mom like flipped out. She was like, oh my god, what's going on? And they're like, no, it's totally fine. Like, we're just changing her PICC line, so we need to like cover her. And the rest of her.
Sanitation.
Right. Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my god, what's going on? So yeah,
It's kind
so
of a little trigger for me.
yeah, I went every day.
Surprise.
Yeah. Every day thereafter, except the day of his service. I was at the NICU, so I didn't see her for 1 day, and that was it. And she was in there for 88 days. She could have been there, I think, a couple less days, obviously, if we had done the surgery one
Right.
week.
81, 88.
Whatever. So yeah, so when she was about 1, we tried going back to the fertility doctor, because I am an only child, and I always hated being an only child, although I'm kind of coming around to it now I'm a little older.
But she also probably would have always had a want.
That's kind of how I felt. We wanted to try and have another one as in quickest succession as we possibly could, because I didn't want her to feel alone. I didn't want her to be a quote-unquote only child. And, you know, we immediately, of course, felt the need to have more kids. I mean, we always wanted more anyway.
Right.
So thereafter is when all of our miscarriages started. So I had a 6-week blighted ovum that 3rd cycle. The 4th cycle was a chemical pregnancy, which I didn't know was considered a miscarriage. But apparently they do.
Reacts as the same kind of
It's
reaction.
like, yeah, but it's a lot quicker. So your beta goes up like to a lower amount, and then it drops back down within a couple days.
Okay.
So it's like you were chemically pregnant, like
Your body thought
thinks
so.
you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, we got pregnant with multiples again too, and we miscarried them at almost 7 weeks.
Was that 2 as well?
Yes, that was really harder than the rest, because, you know, I think, like, you get kind of jaded at some point after them. It was like, oh, we're pregnant, cool, like, everything's gonna go well, and then they're like, oh, we can't find a heartbeat, and then, so then your next step of being happy becomes when you hear the heartbeat. So with these 2, I heard the heartbeat twice, and then I literally heard it the night before, the day before it happened, and I woke up the next morning, and, you know, not to be super, like, traumatic, but I woke up in a bed of blood. It was insane. So I went to the doctors. She couldn't even tell me what was going on. She was like, you're bleeding so much that I can't see anything, so come back tomorrow, and let's hope that one of them is still there.
Or that you had a polyp or something.
Something
right?
crazy happened,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a medical explanation.
Yeah, so after that, we waited about a year before we went back and got pregnant with Elliot.
And Elliot was standard?
Elliot was just, yeah, he was just a standard kid.
Just a standard pregnancy.
Yeah, 39 and 1 scheduled C-section, you know, that type of thing. Never went into labor, was never in labor, like the morning of my, because I said to the lady when she hooked me up, I was like, am I having contractions at all? And she was like, no. I was like, cool, I didn't think so. Yeah, but it was all very surreal, like it was being a first-time mom again. They basically were like, you know, do you want to hold your baby after in the recovery room? I was like,
It was that an option.
am I allowed to do that?
Can I take my shirt off?
I literally was like, I said, I can't feel my legs. Is that okay that I can like hold my baby? And the lady
Right.
just looked at me like, don't you have other kids at home? Like those.
How's your arms working? You hold
Yeah.
with your legs?
Yeah, so he was just standard baby.
Which was nice to actually experience that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, you know, when I got to that 26-week mark, it was like, I've never been this pregnant before. Like, this is so cool. And I'm sure I slipped up a couple times, but I like vowed to never complain about being pregnant. Be big and
It's
uncomfortable.
really hard
and-
not to do that.
It is. I mean, that definitely like heartburn type situation, not sleeping well, but
Well, I
for the
like
most
remember
part-
you saying, like, I've never been this pregnant before.
Yeah.
Like, it was always a
Yeah.
momentous thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I always just wanted to make it to 34. I was like, if I can make it to 34 weeks, that's fine. Like, I don't.
rock star.
Yeah, like I don't care what this baby does after 34 weeks, because that's usually, I mean, technically when they're 34, most of the time they don't need to go in the NICU. So I was like,
Well, I was
okay.
36 and 3, and he spent 4 days in special care.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
you don't know.
No, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was like 34 is like
Yeah.
good. They can suck, swallow, and breathe. I can feed. Like
Yeah.
I can just be like a normal
Now,
parent.
my sister ended up being, I don't know if you know this, diagnosed with incompetent cervix with
Oh,
Celeste.
yeah, no, I didn't know that.
They sewed her up
Stitched her, yeah.
and had to induce her a week and a half after they took the
Stitched
stitches
out.
out because
Yeah.
she would not come out of her.
That's awesome.
Like, she was the first one, couldn't keep in. The
Yeah.
second one was holding on to my lungs, my rib cage, won't come out.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, they monitored me so like closely with Elliot. I mean, I did all kinds of cervical checks and, you know, growth checks and NSTs and oh my god, so many, which I'm so grateful for, honestly.
Right.
I don't know how normal, like quote unquote normal people do it when they're pregnant and they only get like one ultrasound.
So my
Right.
my first one was
Is that
normal.
okay?
Your first 2 were normal.
Yeah.
Did they treat Hunter normal?
No.
Because of Aaliyah.
Yes. Yeah. I had to do NSTs constantly. That they were not necessarily checking up on him, they were checking my uterus
Yeah.
to make sure I wasn't getting a
Thinning.
window,
Yeah.
thinning of my,
Yeah.
Because it was her 4th. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it would be, yeah, because she had so many issues that my uterus grew so big with amniotic fluid that I could have 5 babies in there with her.
Oh wow.
You
So,
could see her belly come out of the back.
yeah,
I'm sure.
the doctors
Real,
told my
yeah.
sister, I
Yeah.
can't believe she walks. And I'm like, I didn't know that was an
You
option.
could see like this
Yeah.
much of her stomach coming out before you saw like the rest of her body.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I didn't realize like I could even have another one after what Aaliyah
Yeah.
put my body through. So
Wow.
We could probably do 2 hours on this subject.
right,
We're getting towards the end of our hour mark.
Yeah.
I want to say that what I've noticed about you is obviously having your daughter has given you a reason to focus and a reason to be mentally well.
Yes. For sure.
You also have a stand-up husband.
Yeah.
You have a good husband. I know you trade him some days. We'd all trade him. We'd all trade him away. But I feel like you've had a supportive husband
Yeah.
who's kind and caring. But I also feel like you've sought out groups.
Yes.
You've sought out other people that have gone through the same thing and that have needed to feel normal.
Yes.
And I think that's the point of this, is that a lot of people go through,
Tons.
maybe not what you went through with Brody,
Yeah, not specifically, but
but
yeah.
the leading up to it and the aftermath and all of the medical appointments and just to do what you feel your body is supposed to do
Yeah.
and what you want to do. So I think that other girls who go through this should reach out, not necessarily to you, but to other
To me,
people.
fine. I'm totally open to anybody who wants to chat about anything. Yeah, I found Facebook support groups in specific just because I think Facebook's a really good,
Readily available.
yeah, like it's a good
Yeah.
platform to do that on.
Easy to set up.
Yes, very, very great. It's nice because on the days, I was just gonna say on the days when you don't wanna look at it, you can just scroll through, but on the days when you need it, it's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
Well, because that part ran out, but we can still use this. So
Yeah.
we could probably put on there. Did you make up any? Just
Pause.
oh. Time.
See if it wants to do all this and wants me to publish it.
Do you have already a group together that you created yourself?
I don't have one that I created myself. I joined quite a few different ones. Most of them are like nationwide, but there's a couple like specifically infertility groups. There's one that's a Metro Detroit one. There's one that is, it's called like Second Time Around Infertility, so I think it's mainly for secondary infertility, but so when you have your first child like normal and have no
Okay.
issues, and then you have a hard time second time around.
Okay.
And then as far as like the preemie support groups were amazing when I was in the NICU, and like being able to just know that like people are going through the same thing that you
Right.
are all the time. And then
Because my sister went through this, it was 06. So it was like a little bit before
Yeah.
the internet was like
a
readily
big
available.
thing. Yeah. There is a child loss group that's local. It's just the Detroit chapter of it. It's called Metro Detroit Share. They have actual meetings every month in, I think, like Taylor and West Brookfield, maybe. I've never been to the meetings, but they host a walk every year. So I've gone to the walk, and it's child loss, both like pregnancy, infant, or like small child.
Yeah.
Which is really, it's a really nice support. It's a cool thing to do that day to, you know, really kind of remember, you know, him and his life and stuff. So we usually do that walk in Taylor somewhere. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it's nice. I haven't started anything just because I feel like I don't have the time right now. Like I don't know if I would be able to do anything like that right now.
Right.
But I am super open to people reaching out. I had a friend of mine reached out to me about when the kids would have been about a year old, and she was like, "Hey, this girl just had, you know, multiple. She had a boy and a girl, and similar situation. Like, do you mind talking to her?" And I was like, "Not at all." And you know,
Because you wished you had had a friend.
and I kind of did. Sarah is amazing, except, you know, thankfully for her, her children lived. But she has been there since day one. I swear she knows exactly what to say, when to say it, how to say it. She's just amazing. I don't know how she does it, honestly. She remembers important days. She just will text me out of nowhere, like she thinks I might be having a bad day. So she's great. She's been a really good support.
And how old are her kids?
They are a year older, almost to the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So
You already knew her?
I did not know her. I met her through my mommy group that I was added to when I was pregnant. And I had asked a question around the 24-week mark about when should I stop working? Like, when should I'm, you know, having multiples. Like, what should I do? I don't know. And she is a stay-at-home mom, and she's pretty active on the group, so she kind of messaged me and was like, "Hey, I have, you know, 1-year-olds at the time."
Okay.
And we kind of got, you know, together, and we're still really good friends. The kids all like love each other, which is
Oh, that's
awesome.
nice to
yeah,
have.
it's super cool. She's actually done so on his anniversary every year, the anniversary of his death every year, we go to the zoo.
Okay, spend time with her.
Yeah, so one of the NICU nurses actually got the kids, like a brick at the zoo.
Oh.
And I don't know why I find it so comforting, cause it's a brick
Because
with their
somebody
names on
other
it.
than somebody that's not emotionally attached to you
Yeah.
cared.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody
Yeah.
that wasn't kin to you or your family or Danny or a friend of yours on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just, and she's a woman who sees a lot of babies
Yes.
go through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we felt a really good connection to her. She also had a preemie, so I think we felt even more connection to her
Yeah.
at the time. But yeah, so she got us a brick, and that's what we do every single year, except last year, which really sucked.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, but Sarah comes with us almost every year, and
Awesome.
does the zoo, so it's really nice.
Alright, so we have to wrap this up
Yeah.
because we all have to get our kids.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.